We're now up to chapter 31 of our book Hercufleas, and he has visited the castle, and we know that he did not drink the Black Death, and he was thinking about what he and Greta were bringing back from this quest, because Greta thinks that he has got the weapon, doesn't she? Chapter 31. The journey back was different. Now it was Hercufleas who sat moody and silent, while Greta talked about her family from dawn to gloaming. She told him of evenings spent eating pumpkin pies, drinking nettle tea, and listening to Papa's stories in the warm, treacly light of the tinderfly lamp. Days when Mama came back late from the woodland and hugged Greta tight, her coat thick with the smell of pine needles, and Wuff with his scruffy fur and floppy ears. How he used to sit, paws crossed, by the stove. She told Hercufleas things she hadn't let herself remember for a long time, fearing they would be too painful. Then Greta found she wanted to talk about the future too, about how life would be when Yuck was gone. I'll build a new home from everpines and invite the Mouseketeers to stay. I'll brew nettle tea and I'll always taste sweet. I'm going to find where the green giants sleep and wake them up. That roused Hercufleas from his gloomy thoughts. Haven't you had enough of giants? She laughed. Not all of them are like Yuck, you know. And that night, by the fire, huddled under the blanket, Greta explained. Papa told me about the green giants. Before them, all Petrosia was like it is out here on the waste. Then they came along, planting the forests and bringing life. She made her voice deep and dreamy. Long ago, back in the time when trees could speak and laugh and rhyme, green giants walked among the firs like Mother Nature's gardeners. Hercufleas was sleepy. What happened to them? He yawned, cuddling up in her scarf. Greta shrugged. They fell asleep. No one knows where. Just think, somewhere out there, so deep in the forest that the trees still whisper to each other, there are these enormous people, big as cathedrals, all sleeping on beds of wild flowers. I wish we could wake them, Hercufleas mumbled. There'd be no more woodants, only woods. No more rattlesnakes, no more pine needlers, no more Yuck either. Greta smiled. We don't need green giants for that, she said, burying her chin in her scarf. We've got you. Hercufleas went quiet. Ever since leaving the fortress, he had fixed a confident smile upon his face and never let it slip. It was like wearing a mask. And if Greta saw behind it, she would know the truth. How will you do it? She asked him the next night. Do what? How will you give Yuck the Black Death? Greta said. She took a wheel of cheese from their supplies, speared it on a stick and began toasting it over the flames. Do you just have to bite him somewhere? Or does it have to be a weak spot? And then what happens next? How long until he drops down dead? Will he swell up and go pop? Do his eyes fall out? Will his insides turn to mush? I don't know, Hercufleas said, trying to hide his discomfort. Greta's eyes burned as she stared at the flames. Hope it hurts, she whispered. Hercufleas shuddered. Greta took the bubbling cheese from the embers, sliced off the soft wax, and dipped some roots she had gathered in the gooey centre. Artifacts clucked as he gulped them down. Greta smiled and scratched his neck while he ate. Then she pricked her thumb again and gave Hercufleas a thimble of her blood. It was the sweetest and coolest he had ever tasted. With another flavour too, dark and breathless. It was anticipation. Do you know what that word is? Anticipation? When you anticipate something. If you're anticipating something, you're looking forward to it and you're hoping it will happen. Like when you anticipate Christmas Day or your birthday. Yeah, something good that you're looking forward to. It was anticipation. Greta couldn't wait to destroy Yuck, to finally get her revenge. Hey, she said, looking up, what's that? Hercufleas followed her gaze. Down from the dark sky, a white and silent speck fell towards them. It settled by the fire, like the ghost of a tinder fly come to spark itself back to life. Another flake came down out of the breathless cold. Then dozens, hundreds, uncountable thousands. Artifacts stared in confusion. Cautiously he picked a few from his wings. "What are they?" whispered Hercufleas. Greta looked up at the clouds. "Miss Witz told us about this in school," she whispered back. "I think it's snow." "Snow," breathed Hercufleas. Then he said, "Why are we whispering?" Greta opened her mouth and then shrugged. It was as if something wonderful was coming close, and if they talked too loud they might frighten it off. She stood up, peering into the night around them, Hercufleas in her palm. Miss Witz said, "If you see snow, it means the snow merchant is close." And her voice, a murmur, she told him the legend of a silver-haired old woman who travelled the world with a stone bird upon her shoulder, bringing snow wherever she went, working a sort of alchemy upon winter, changing it from something ugly to something beautiful. And whoever gave her a place to stay, she signed her name as Snow Merchant in blue ink upon their ledger. But why she walked and where she came from and where she was going, the legend didn't say. Greta's breath caught in her throat. There! Upon the faraway hills, Hercules saw a tiny flickering light as someone with a lantern made their lonely way across the waste. Can you see them at the bottom of the page? All the way down there. There is somebody with a little lamp going across the waste. "Is that the snow merchant?" whispered Hercufleas. "Is the legend true?" Greta smiled her fragile smile that grew stronger and fiercer with each day and said quietly, "I don't know, but I believe." Next day, artifacts took them across a pure white landscape, glittering and silent. The waste was still desolate and cold, but the snow merchant had made it magical too. Hercules thought a lot about that. Believing was not a weapon, but it had a quiet power nonetheless. He might not be bringing the Black Death back to Tumba, but Greta was bringing back her belief. Perhaps that would be enough. It had to be.